Then we are coming to the main event of the day, the speaker session. And with us today is one of our partner organization from Extension Africa coming here to teach us about risk management in the business. And before we introduce him, we would like to see this bio. And our speaker for today is Nasi Dama, Precious Manager at Extension Africa. Nasi is an accomplished economist, agribusiness strategist, and climate smart agricultural specialist. With over a decade of experience in agricultural development, he has a strong track record of empowering smallholder farmers across various value chains, including the maize, soybean, sorghum, rice, and vegetables. He's passionate about sustainable agriculture and market-driven solutions, which is why he focuses on improving livelihoods through innovation, capacity building, and strategic partnerships. His expertise lies in promoting climate-smart practices and fostering resilience in the business ecosystem that drives long-term growth and impact. And with this, I would initially like to welcome our speaker for today, Nancy Dreamy. If you're on the call, please kindly unmute and we give the better podium to you.
Thank you very much, Nonso. Nosa. Good afternoon, everyone. As introduced, my name is Nasru Dharma. I am the operations manager for Extension Africa, and Extension Africa, as I believe most of us on this call are aware, is a pioneer private extension firm, which is in Nigeria, it was established with the sole intention of supporting the services of public extension system in Nigeria. And we also work to support agri-businesses in providing them with a network of reliable extension agents. The dream or the plan is to expand through across Africa, the entire Africa as a continent, and I'm currently expanding into 2 additional African countries this year. So I'm happy to be here. And in addition to that, in Extension Africa, we also have an online academy where students can, students and other agribusiness, agripreneurs can log into for capacity building purposes. This online platform provides students and youth with the industry skills, the industry needed skills, and we have partnership with a number of Nigerian universities. Thank you very much. So while the topic today is so allow me to please share my screen. The topic today is the risks in Africa's agriculture and the mitigating strategy. So I please let me know if you can see my screen. Hello, can you see my screen, please? Hello, can anybody hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear.
Okay,
yes,
thank you very
much.
much.
Your screen.
Thank you. So, so as I like to say, cultivating resilience, right? Because agriculture is not the only business that is prone with risks, or that is has been overwhelmed by risks, right? It's not peculiar to that, but the resilience of those among us that are standing up to those challenges and risks are the ones thriving today, are the ones feeding the Africa as a continent. So, as I like to target, I would call it cultivating resilience, risk mitigation strategies in African agriculture. So this is what our presentation is all about. So I would like to begin with a quote by Nelson Mandela, the Madiba, which says that it always seems impossible until it's done. Right? I believe for those of us that have an experience in agricultural space will tell you that the challenges are enormous. The risk of losing your investment is always there. But those of us that have been there, that has weathered through the storm, are the ones that are still standing, right? So Africa's fields may face many risks, but within every challenge lies a seed of opportunity. By embracing innovation, sustainability, and partnership, today's agripreneurs cannot only weather the storm of climate and market uncertainties, they can also lead transformation of African agriculture. So Africa is ours. Africa's agriculture is ours. The challenges in African agriculture are ours, and it is only us that are going to stand up to these challenges and address the risks and challenges within the Africa agriculture. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to give us an overview of Africa's agriculture before we dive into the risks of Africa's agriculture. Uh, Number one, so when we look at Africa's agriculture, is the backbone of Africa's economy because it employs about 55 to 65% of Africa's population. And in some countries, agriculture contributes to over 30% of their GDPs. Africa's agriculture is also characterized by the smallholder dominance. Most of the production, especially the primary production in Africa, is being done by farmers with less than 2 hectares. So, and also the major staple crops in Africa are cassava, maize, yams, millet, sorghum, and rice. Though we have some cash crops that we export to international markets, such as cocoa, coffee, tea, and cotton. So, also, Africa's agriculture has been also characterized by low productivity among all the continents in the world. Our productivity is ranking the lowest simply because of the lack of improved seed and other premium input like fertilizer. Also, there is very little adoption of mechanization as means of production in Africa's agriculture, simply because of the land holdings by smallholder farmers. It's something that the smallholder farmers can do with the size of the families they have. So also Africa's agriculture is also characterized or is known by limited irrigation. As we can see, over 90% of African agriculture is rain-fed, relying solely on a wet season production, which is limiting the ability of us to produce more, feed ourselves as a continent, and also be able to export the produce into to international markets. Also, finance is a very key component of agriculture and any other business globally. But Africa's agriculture is facing limited access to finance and structured market. Farmers often struggle to obtain credit and face challenges accessing local and also international market. So this is just an overview, a summary overview of Africa's agriculture, which is characterized by a number of problems. Yet beneath all these opportunities, the opportunities within Africa's the entrepreneurship is that an opportunity for those willing to solve those problems. And that is a general overview. But we can also look at Africa's agriculture from the economic contribution to various countries, right? As if we could recall in the previous slides, I mentioned that it contributes up to 30% in some African countries. But if you look at it overall, on average, agriculture accounts for up to 23.4% of Africa's GDP. And also it exceeds 30% in countries like Ethiopia, Mali, and Chad. And also agriculture in Africa is the largest employer of labor. About more than 60% of Africa's population is being employed by agriculture. So all of these things that we mentioned, especially the challenges, looking at the overview, the challenges of Africa's agriculture, all of these challenges are not peculiar to Africa. Other continents do also face similar challenges, but they've been very intentional about their challenges and issues, and they were able. There is this drive that helped them in overcoming such challenges. So I want to take us into a comparative insight between Africa and two other continents so that we can have a clear picture as to where we stand as a continent in terms of agricultural production. So when we look at this thing, these are the factors. We have factors of the risk factors, and we also have the continent where they are with these risk factors. Number one, if we look at it, we look at the climate vulnerability. Climate change and global warming leading to climate change has significantly posed a serious threat to Africa, to agriculture globally. But Africa is at the receiving end, at the bottom of the pyramid, when it comes to the safety net in terms of climate vulnerability. So if you look at the climate vulnerability in Africa is high, while it is low in Europe and also variable in Asia. In some countries in Asia is very low, while in some is a bit high. So let's look at what are these climate vulnerabilities and why are we in Africa facing such a so serious climate variability. And this is due to our reliance on rain-fed agriculture and with limited control or policies or mitigation strategies put in place and being implemented, especially by the policymakers or the major agri players in the continent. Right. So let's look at also technology adoption. The technology adoption is very low in Africa, is high in Europe, and is improving in Asia. Why? Because the reason why we have very low technology adoption in Africa is because of the struggling extension system in Africa. If it will interest you to know that Africa's extension is the worst globally. Why I'm saying the worst globally? Let me take Nigeria for instance as a case study. One extension agent, one extension agent on average is supporting 10,000 farmers in Nigeria on average. We have a state in Nigeria where they have less than 30 extension agents against 450 to 500,000 farmers. Right. So this is simply telling you that the situation is critical. So and these technologies are there. We are not liking one in terms of research in Africa, but the system to disseminate these technologies to the last mile farmers is what is lacking. And this is why Extension Africa is coming with an idea of promoting a private extension platform where we can be able to address these extension challenges in Africa. So irrigation access, as we've seen in the overview, Africa's agriculture is largely rain-fed agriculture. Over 90% of it is dependent on the wet season production with limited access to irrigation facilities. Right, or in a situation, I'm part of the 10% access to irrigation facilities in Africa are farmers that are doing it themselves by digging, by providing on their fields tube wells and other means of irrigating their fields. Now, the policy and institutional support in Africa is very weak, simply because there is no cohesion between the government agencies and the private sector that are playing within the agricultural ecosystem. Looking at this, if we look at, for instance, you see in a country, in a particular African country, you would find 5, 6 agencies providing or trying to doing what complementary services, all in line with addressing some agricultural challenges. So there is no cohesion between even the government agencies, let alone the private sector. Now the productivity in Africa is also very low, while if you can see in Europe is very high, while moderate in Asia. So Africa, we have the lowest productivity when it comes to production, agricultural production. This is largely as a result of the seed varieties we have, the excessive use of synthetic fertilizers, and also the excessive use of other chemicals. All these are contributing to these challenges and risks that is facing the field of agriculture. Now let's come back to the scope of our presentation, the topic of our presentation, the Africa's agricultural risks. So what I try to do here is I try as much as possible to limit this, to group these risks to four groups so that we can address them as this, so because of time. So number one, definitely the topic of discussion, the term on everybody's, every expert's tongue today is climate change, right? The climate change, the climate change. Everybody, everywhere you go, people are talking about climate resilient agriculture or climate smart agriculture. So definitely we have to look at climate and environmental risks. Climate change poses significant challenges and risks to agricultural production, right? If you look at it, number one we have here is droughts, flood, and irregular rainfall, which limits the production of agriculture, which affects production, reduces the yield from the farmers' point of view, and also in many cases of floods, leading to the complete loss of product of investment uh, due to floods and over a very long drought over a period of time. So rising temperature and changing weather patterns. Rising temperature affect agricultural production, especially in vegetables, where it affects the flowering stage of vegetables, which are usually rendered not useful at the end of the day. The farmers that have invested this money thinking of generating revenues and leads to soil certification or felling of trees, as a result of urbanization, industrialization, and among other things have led to the felling down of trees, which is also encouraging desert encroachment. So all these are climate-related risks that are posing significant threats to agriculture in Africa. So there are no regulatory agencies, even if the policies are there in place, but there are no enforcers of this. There is no deterrence to ensure that these policies are being adhered with. So all of these are some of the reasons why we have significant climate and environmental risks that are threatening the existence and the survival of agriculture in Africa. So let's move to biological and health risks. We have the likes of crop and pest diseases. We have poultry and livestock diseases. We have high incidence of post-harvest losses. I believe during our last meeting here, our last presentation I made here, where we talk about value addition, we emphasize on value addition as a means of curtailing post-harvest losses in Africa's agriculture. So we also have socio-economic and market risks, where we have price volatility and unstable market. We know that there is no stable market, there is no stable price, there is no body or regulatory agency that is helping us establish prices like this, ensuring that the investment of the agripreneurs is being protected, right? So the market is highly volatile, so which is a very significant risk to investors. Now, limited access to finance, credit, and insurance. So the financial institutions in Africa are still viewing agriculture as a high risk investment, which is why they are mostly not they are not necessarily not issuing loans and credit facilities to agriculture to agripreneurs, which is a very significant issue because it affects the possibility of expanding the businesses of the individual. Now, insecure land tenure and conflict, we know Africa and land, we have issues of land dispute, farmer harder clashes, and also labor shortages from migration, pandemics, and insecurity. We know migration, Africans, a lot of Africans are leaving the continent in search for a greener future. And also some of us are that with the pandemic and war and insecurity that is pushing people out of their communities. All this affect the availability of land and also the labor in those communities. Now, finally, on the list of risks we have is the infrastructure and policy risks, right? Resilience or reliance, sorry, on rain-fed agriculture and limited irrigation. We rely much more on rain-fed agriculture, which is a very serious threat because what we are producing, in addition to the low productivity we have, where most of our farmers are unable to produce years round, right? Which limit the number of the volume of commodities or produce that we can produce per annum, right? So we have poor infrastructure. We know usually the farmers in Africa are those in the rural communities, and access roads and storage facilities are often a challenge for these smallholder farmers. We also have low adoption of technology, which is as a result of the struggling extension system in Africa. We also have weak policy, inadequate extension services, and bureaucratic hurdles. Even with the policies, with the government, even if there is a regulatory agency, the government that is supposed to give agripreneurs the backing, the support that is needed, there is this very long bureaucratic hurdle that an agripreneur will have to undergo, ensuring that he or she survives the hurdles. So all of these are the challenges, are the risks that are facing Africa's agriculture. Now we've looked at the risks. What are the mitigation strategy for this for what is the challenges or the risks that are facing Africa's agriculture? So African agripreneurs can turn climate risks into growth opportunities by going smart, going green, and getting connected, staying connected, and forging powerful partnerships. So usually, nobody is an island. No one is an island. So no business should survive and on its own. Then there is this: if we can promote synergy, if we can promote a culture, a community of experts of like minds. So these are the things that we believe can help agripreneurs come together and solve their problem. Just like what is currently being done from the previous, what is being presented by the previous, what has been presented by the previous presenters on joining this community and look at the number of values, the things, the value proposition of joining these communities and what we stand to gain after joining these communities. So these are the risks, and we have the mitigants. So lower yields and income. So usually climate, as a result of climate change, the climate effect and environmental risks leads to lower yields and income. So what should be the mitigant? How can we mitigate ourselves, our way around these risks? So number one, we can now use resistant varieties for primary producers. For farmers that are producing crops, they can look for resistant varieties that are resistant to pests and diseases, varieties that are resistant to drought. They can be varieties that can be able to withstand drought. A farmer or an agripreneur should go for those varieties that are designed to withstand the adverse effects of nature of climate change. Now, sustainable agricultural practices such as minimum tillage and mulching. For instance, we know that the soil has been degraded as a result of overuse of synthetic fertilizers and also all year round production in some cases. So how do we mitigate this? So we have to adopt some regenerative agricultural practices. These regenerative agricultural practices involves incorporation of soil organic matter that will revive the fertility and productivity of the soil. And also these are also by minimum tillage. We avoid breaking down overuse of mechanization as a result of to ensure that the soil structure is not being destroyed, and also we adopt some water conservation methodologies, ensuring that we are conserving the soil water. So these are also we have to diversify integrated farming practices. This integrated farming practices is the combination of crops and animal production, or crops and forestry, where you can have, in a situation where you have crop and tree plantation, the tree plantation could serve as a windbreakers to protect your field from to serve as windbreakers, and also to protect your field from desert encroachment, among other benefits. So these are mitigants that we can look at when it comes to low yields and income. So investment in efficient water management and irrigation. Then agripreneurs should focus their energy in investing in efficient water management and irrigation. Of course, coming up with irrigation scheme largely is the responsibility of the government, because it's something that requires a very huge investment. But nevertheless, we as agripreneurs, we can look into what can we do within the means we have, right? So we can install small scale irrigation system where you can have a drips or sprinkler, or you can also venture into harvest and store rainwater, where you can have a pond or use tanks to collect rainwater, so that you can focus, you can use the water in an event whereby it's drought, or in an event whereby during dry season. Now we can also implement smart water use practices with scheduling and sensors. This is largely what we call alternate wetting and drying. So we do not just irrigate the fields as conventional as we used to. So we have to now start looking at it from scientific point of view, as to when is this water required and how much of the water is required for irrigation. So we have to look at this and also focus on providing such mitigants to avoid wasting resources and wasting this water. And also agripreneurs can also look into use of solar powered irrigation pumps, right? We can, because here is going to save us investment, and because we are not going to be buying fuel, and also help in mitigating some of the climate change issues by not emitting carbon monoxide into the atmosphere as a result of the use of fossil fuels. Now, let's move to the next one, which is soil nutrient depletion, desertification, loss of biodiversity, and deforestation. So what are the mitigants here? So the mitigants here are adopt regenerative farming techniques, which are the incorporation, such as incorporation of organic matter. You are making compost and compost extract, using other organic materials to ensure that we enrich the soil for production. While you also invest in soil and water conservation, part of what I discussed up there, and also integrate agroforestry and tree planting. As we know, as I mentioned, agroforestry is going to provide a farmer with multiple stream of income. As you have the plantation, when your crops are not available, definitely the fruits from the trees are going to be available for you to harvest and take to the market. And at the same time, also help in adding nutrient to the soil, and also serve as windbreakers, ensuring that there is no desert encroachment on your field. Yes, so that is that for climate environmental risks, and also let's look at the biological and health risks. Excuse me. So for the biological risks, we're looking at pest and disease management, the risks rather posed by pests and diseases. So how do we mitigate? What are the mitigants for that? So we can look at integrated pest management, where we use different pest and disease management to curtail the effects, the adverse effects of pests and diseases, where we can use the physical means, the mechanical means, and the use of other organic substances in controlling pests and diseases. Let me cite an example here. So there are a group of farmers that we working with as Extension Africa, where we are promoting climate smart agriculture. So they experiencing a very serious challenge with one fall armyworm, which is a common insect, yeah, among maize farmers in Nigeria. So we promoted to them the use of neem trees and neem leaves and seed as means as organic means of controlling this insect to serve as insecticide. So we can look at these organic means in controlling such things. Now, adopt resistant varieties and certify seed. Ensure that we promote that agripreneurs use varieties that are designed, that are produced to withstand the challenges they face within their locality. There are some maize varieties that I know that are resistant to striga, that are resistant to drought, and also ensure that these seeds you are getting are certified. We have to encourage agripreneurs not to be recycling their seed. It's very, very important as it reduces the yield and also is prone to pests and diseases. Now, so we also promote crop rotation and farm hygiene. Ensure that because some of these diseases, pests and diseases are crop specific. So if an agropreneur is rotating the plants, the that being produced on the field, definitely is not allowing the development of such of particular pest or disease on his or her farm. So it's important that we promote crop rotation and ensure that the hygiene, a very good sanitation, is being conducted during production. Yeah, it's very, very important. And also we can use biological and organic control. It's important that we use biological control, introducing predators against the diseases that you have. For instance, now, there is a situation whereby some rodents have been attacking cassava farm in Nigeria. So the farmer introduced a cat to his field, ensuring that these rodents are not, the cat is feeding on the rodent, chasing away the rodent from the farmer's field. So these are biological control and something that can be introduced to ensure that the risks of these biological risks or the issues of pests and diseases are being controlled. Now, we can also look at the agripreneurs who are into poultry and livestock. What are these risks? There are so many risks that are attributed to diseases that are related to poultry and livestock. So for these agripreneurs, we will encourage them to implement strict biosecurity measures, restrict movement, restrict entry into the animals' houses, ensuring that anybody who have access to this place he's realizing his boots and other materials that he's using to assess where the animals are being kept, and ensure that strict adherence to vaccine and routine health program. Ensure that all the vaccine that are required for the poultry and other livestock is being adhered to. Also, nutrition and proper management. Livestock, the productivity of livestock is largely dependent on the nutrition and management of those of the livestock. So an agripreneur should ensure that All these things are what are being adhered to, and an agripreneur can also seek the services. It's important we seek the services of veterinary support, ensuring that all our livestock are being looked after from, because this is a very serious investment and it requires proper management. So the next risk we have is high incidence of post-harvest losses. So, like I mentioned, we discussed this during our last presentation, where we look at what should value addition. What value addition strategies should we develop or employ to ensure that we mitigate such risks? So, number one is invest in proper storage solution. Largely, most of the post-harvest losses that we are incurring as farmers is as a result of lack of good post-harvest handling, also post-harvest storage facilities, right? So an agripreneur should bear in mind that prior to engaging in production, he or she must have an alternative, an idea as to where he or she should store the commodities after harvest. Ensuring that this is very important, also understanding the best method or approach of storing the particular commodity or produce that is being produced. Now, timely and efficient harvesting, especially for vegetable, even though it goes even to those that are into grain production, but especially for vegetable, farmers or agripreneurs should know when to harvest, and this is being informed by the target market. For instance, if let's take tomato as for example, if a farmer in the northern part of Nigeria is harvesting his or her tomatoes and is taking it to a southern part of Nigeria, which is a very far distance of 1,500 kilometers, for instance, that farmer should know at what stage he or she should harvest such tomato. So it's very, very important that farmers know this. Also, for grains, especially for maize, in order to avoid the risks of aflatoxin. So a farmer should know when to harvest, and the timing is very important in making sure that there is no this aflatoxin on his harvest. So value addition and processing. Of course, if we really want to prolong or increase the shelf life of whatever we produce, then we should look into value addition and processing. Now, improve access to structured market. Before farmer or agripreneur engage into especially primary production, then he or she should begin with the end in mind. The end in mind being that, okay, if I produce this, then who is buying? I believe even the production principle of when to produce, how to produce, and to whom to produce. Also, I help us support this argument that farmers should know where the last mile farmer, who is the consumer of whatever I'm producing. So we must know that we have access to this market. In an event whereby access to this structured market is unaccessible to the smallholder farmer or agripreneur on his own, then it's important that we form cooperative societies so that we can be able to access our structured markets. Now, the socio-economic and market risks. So most of the things we mention are things that are within the control of a smallholder or agripreneur, right? But some of these things are beyond what agripreneur can do. So the only thing you can do is look at, okay, with the situation we have, what is it that is within my ability, within my capacity to change as an agripreneur, and what is it that is beyond me? And for those things that are beyond me, what should I do? So these are These are some of the ideology, the ideas one should have when venturing into agricultural production. Now, so let's look at number one, the price volatility and unstable market. As I mentioned, price volatility is a common stuff in agricultural market, right? The price, especially for vegetables, the price in the morning may be different from the price in the afternoon, and the price in the evening may be different from the price in the afternoon. So the volatility is very high. So there is need for us to understand this, the market flow, and also what can we do to provide cushion for our investment. So number one is crop diversification. So, like I mentioned, where the highest the volatility is at its peaks is for with vegetable. So, a farmer should now focus on how do I do. Let me just incorporate other crops like grains, right? Because if the price of grain is not suitable for me, it's something that I can always take back to the stores, right? I can keep it there for as long as I want, especially if I have the know-how or the technical know-how on how to properly store my grains. But for vegetable, the hands of our agripreneur are tight. There is limits to what he or she can do in this at this stage. So the ideal thing for him or her to do at this point in time is to diversify and see what other things can I incorporate into my business so that I can provide cushion and protect my investment. Now, market diversification. In market diversification, expanding your sales across diverse channels help protect your investment from price swings in any one market. So ensure that as an agripreneur that your market is not just one. You have other means of channeling and selling your produce or your product. Ensure that so that if market A is not buying, then market B is likely going to buy. Ensure that you provide yourself with such options. Now, contract farming. So engage yourself in contract farming. Have a signed agreement with who he or she is going to buy your commodities. And you can only have contract farming if you are dealing with establishment, cooperative association, or government, ensuring that okay, we have a demand of those social commodities or social products so by so time. In doing so, we can now have a signed agreement giving you a price stability while securing reliable market access. This is very, very important for farmers to look in, for agripreneurs to look into. Excuse me. Now, limited access to finance, credit, and insurance. Of course, agripreneurs in Africa are struggling to access credit and finance simply because the lenders, the financial institutions, are seeing agriculture as a high risk investment, which it is. Agriculture is a high risk investment, even with your expertise, with all these mitigation strategies. There is likelihood that you are going to experience such risks. So, what should one do in an event of a limited access to finance, credit, and insurance? Now, for an agripreneur, you start looking at alternative funding, alternative financing through schemes such as crowdfunding, venture capital, and equity financing. Crowdfunding, where you can have an aggregation of individuals who are willing to put their resources together to invest in your business. That is crowdfunding. Venture capital are those establishments that are investing into upcoming startups, ensure, especially those that with promising growth. So we have venture capital that do invest in such things. We also have equity financing, those that are willing to invest in your company for a particular for a piece or percentage of the company. I believe most of the entrepreneurs on this call will remember, I'm sure they are aware or are familiar with the program on TV named Sharks, where a CEO, an agripreneur, or an entrepreneur will go onto the program, pitch his company an idea so that he or she can secure investment. Now, the next thing for an agripreneur to do is build strong credit history. So in order for you to make yourself bankable, make your business bankable, and be able to access credit facilities from financial institutions or even from the alternative financiers, one has to have a very good credit history, ensuring that you have a dedicated bank account for your business, separating it from your personal finances, and also ensure that you have the record of your investment from the day of inception to where you are at the moment. This will now showcase the growth or lack of it of your investment, of your business. And that's what is going to give investors or the lenders the confidence or otherwise to either invest in your business or not. So it's very, very important for an agripreneur to have this so that he or she can be able to secure finances that will allow him to expand his businesses. Now, as an agripreneur, there is need for you to join cooperative groups of an association that are related to your businesses. The essence of doing this, pulling yourselves together, will give you more outlook, right? And also will make you more attractive, and which will help you to access these finances, right? By pooling resources with other agripreneurs, you can access group loans, shared savings, and improve bargaining power while benefiting from group-based microfinance institution with some flexible lending requirement. So you can have the bargaining power here. Then you can have a seat at the table to even negotiate and how much of an interest is going to be given to you after is going to be put on your the loan after you must have secured the loan. So all these are the essence of pulling yourselves together with other agripreneurs to ensure that you will be able to access what seems impossible to access as an individual. Yes. Now, so the risks we have here is also labor shortages from migration, pandemics, and insecurity. There are wars in Africa. So many countries, the likes of Somalia, the likes of Chad, some part of Nigeria, and the Sudan and other African countries. There are wars, there are other insecurities, right? So all of these have led to migration of especially the able youth within the continent to focus on so that they can go and search for a greener pasture. So what are these mitigants? What are these mitigants? What should we do as agripreneurs? Now, one should invest in labor-saving technologies because you cannot encourage people to stay when their lives is on the line, right? So, such as we have to invest in labor saving technologies. What are these things that one technology that can work for our equivalent of 10 farmers, 10 laborers, or 20 laborers, right? Look, such the investments, such technologies, planters. Instead of getting youth to go on your farm and plant the seed, you can have a semi-automatic planter that can work for farmers, and that can work on your farm, that can give you the work for up to 10 individuals. Also look at drone services for fertilizer application and other chemical application. We usually, if you are applying fertilizer manually, you're going to be needing a number of people, youth, to be able to apply this fertilizer for you. But in an event whereby you have an investment in a drone services which can fly over your field and apply these fertilizers at once, then it's something that is encouraging. Now, then apart from investing in labor-saving technologies, what else can we do? Now we train and retain local workers. So in an event whereby you have only a few number of them, there is need for you to improve their capacity so that they can be able to be masters of what they are doing, right? So that they can be more productive as to when they are not trained. And also you have to improve their wages and also working condition, something that will serve as an incentive for them to stay there and continue to work for your businesses. Now, we also stagger production cycle, right? In an event where an agripreneur is into primary production and an agripreneur is into primary production and is producing, and there is no need for you to do it at once if there is a labor shortage, right? So you can now stagger the production, giving these people a work or job for a whole year round. You can stagger it, 1/3 of the field to be produced this month, and then the other third, half of the field to be produced some other time. So all these are mitigating strategies that can be adopted by agripreneurs. Now, let's look at, I think, the final risks that we have on this presentation, which is infrastructural and institutional risks. These are largely beyond what agripreneurs can do because they involve government and other big establishments for us to be able to find our ways around this. But nevertheless, we as agripreneurs, we do not sit on our hands to say that we're going to wait until government come into the play to solve our problem. This is where we are agripreneurs. We are here to see the challenge and solve the challenge so that we can also earn some tokens while solving these problems. So reliance on rain-fed agriculture and limited irrigation. So water management, as I mentioned in the previous slides, that we adopt water management strategies. We harvest water, we alternate wetting and drying, and we also minimize water loss through mulching, through the use of tanks and other small dams that are within our field so that we can collect water to ensure that we are able to produce even during dry season. Now, soil moisture management. So we adopt practices like conservation tillage, zero tillage, and intercropping that can help retain soil moisture and improve water availability for plant growth. By doing this, it's going to limit or reduce the volume of water that we're going to be using in irrigating our field, right? We have with little water, we can be able to now produce as much as we can because we are giving the plant or the crops exact amount that they require, as against the conventional way of flooding the field with water with the thought that okay, this is how the plant or the crop will stay healthy. Now, risk management and insurance. Obtaining agricultural insurance can help protect against losses due to drought, flood, or other natural disasters, providing a financial safety net for agripreneurs. Now, the second one here is the weak extension system and knowledge transfer. As I mentioned, agriculture, there is a very low adoption of technology in Africa's agriculture. This is it's not because we do not have the research to be taken or the technologies to be conveyed or to be disseminated to the smallholder farmer. No, we do have them. But the issue is we have a very fragile and struggling extension system in Africa. In an event where you have the extension agent working for 10,000 farmers, they are not even supported with motorbike to be able to go to reach out to the last mile farmers, right? So in such event, in such situation, it's important that we address as an agripreneurs how do we solve this problem for ourselves. not waiting on government or any agency to come and address these issues for us. So we identify and collaborate with local experts. Within the community, there may be a retired public extension person, or there may be somebody who is a trained agriculturist, somebody who has experience, wealth of experience, or valuable insight when it comes to farming or when it comes to whatever business we are into. So if we can be able to identify such experts, then form a form of collaboration with that expert so that he or she will be providing such support to our businesses. Now, form partnership with private sector. Involve private sector actors such as input suppliers, processors, and marketing agents in training and knowledge transfer initiatives. There are some private partners that are having common problem with you, or you may have an idea, or you may have what other partners do not have. So if you can collaborate and partner with them, then you can form a formidable force whereby you form a symbiotic relationship where each and every one of you is benefiting from the relationship with the other. That is, form a win-win relationship with other partners within the private sector to solve your problem. You can always partner with Extension Africa to provide you with such with mitigating factors wherever you are in Africa, because we have an online platform that is supporting agripreneurs with knowledge transfer. Now, reliance on red-fed agriculture and sorry. So I think oh, so I think I have I am present. Now, from the policy point of view, government will have to come in to support what we are doing. So, policy development, develop and implement a robust agricultural policy. The issue is, in some cases, their policies are there, but they are not being enforced or implemented. And in another instances, the policies are not even there, right? For instance, now you see in an African country where farmers are being encouraged to go back to the field to produce more, while we also allow our borders open or leave our borders so porous that others are importing what we are producing locally, crashing the prices of what the farmer, all the local entrepreneurs are the investment. Also, how regulatory streamline the policy implements. In a country, in an African country, you will see, you can find multiple regulatory agencies operating within the same scope. For instance, let me give us, you will see a Ministry for Agriculture, you will see another body for agriculture where things are being done, right? And all of them are not operating in synergy. Now you also see you see a bank implemented. Let me give us an example with Nigeria. There was a time where the CBN itself is implementing an agricultural policy, an agricultural finance policy in the country. While the Ministry of Agriculture is there, and also the Bank of Agriculture is also there, but the CBN itself, Central Bank of Nigeria, is also be there implementing an agri finance policy on behalf of the government, while we have other agencies that are there saddled with such responsibility constitutionally. So there is need for the government to look into streamlining this activity, ensuring that there is this cohesion and synergy between these regulatory agencies. Now, research and development. Invest in agricultural research and development. We are not short of this, But yes, we still have to invest more and ensure, after which now ensure that we have a very robust extension system that will enhance the services, the delivery through funding, training, and retraining. After the research, then there is the findings, the technologies shouldn't rest on the shelf of the universities and other research institutions. It should be able to reach the last mile farmer who's the priority of all farmers. Private partnership, encourage private partnership, rather, in policy making. Right? So that the point here I'm making is there should be a bottom-up approach. Government shouldn't just involve the value chain actors within the value chain, involve them in coming up with policies. They know they know their problems. They know, they will now suggest the I say that the future of Africa's agribusiness belongs to those who dare to adapt, invest, and rise above the risks. We have the risks, but we have to rise above them. Let's go forth and cultivate resilience, prosperity, and thriving legacy for generations to come. Thank you very much. My name is Nasiru Dharma. Thank you.